panelists, I hope you're not that hungry. I know it's right before lunch, and also to the audience. But this is really it's an emerging topic, it's a new topic, but it's taken the world by storm, literally. So I'll begin by asking a generic question, and I'll ask whoever wants to respond. What's the most exciting thing in AI or generative AI that you guys are working on? If you can shed some light on that, that'll be great, just to kick it off.
Sure. So I'm Trivesh from Trade Genie. So for us, the most interesting thing is the business opportunities that it's evolving slowly, but eventually I think wealth and investments, a lot of it can be driven through AI. A lot of it can be built on AI, both generative and the NLPs of the world, and how you can build on it. There are a lot of use cases for us, and that's what excites us as a business model.
Let me also chime in. So I'm Mayank. I'm the CTO at Rupee.com, part of Cardeco Group. We're in the business of giving people financing online, completely paperless. What I'm most excited about is we're using GenAI to file loan applications online, helping consumers work with GenAI technologies to answer queries, apply for financing. And I'm also excited about enabling our internal employees to ask questions on our database, which is very convenient for them. And we are just piloting GitHub Copilot in our organization to enable software developers to code better.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Rahul. So just to add to the thought, right? See, we have also recently launched a chatbot. And this chatbot, we have primarily built up for people, those are in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, right? Especially people, those are able to speak their native language. And the one big challenge that we have always faced, right? People, those are coming to mobile app, right? Because usually it is either in Hindi or English, right? People, those are coming from different regions, right? They find difficulties, right? So how can we serve to this tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? And especially if we really see, right, this is the India, right? Okay. So what we have started with GenAI, right, and using Azure OpenAI platform, we put up a chatbot, right, and now any user that is coming, right, he can speak in his native language, right, and that get converted from speech to text, right, and with his text, we are able to identify the intent, and this intent is really helping him to find a flight. So overall, the journey that previously we were also having a chatbot, but now we see, right, we are able to understand the intent very well and able to serve that customer, right? So now we are started really building for the India.
That's terrific. So really we have, in 2 minutes, we have seen applications in travel, in wealth, I know this is a heavily fintech group, but even there is a wide variety of application. But is there, do you see this as truly disruptive? Maybe Mayank, I'll go to you. Do you see this as truly disruptive given the technology, given the maturity that it is in right now, especially in sectors that are slow to digitize and, like yourselves, very heavily regulated?
Thank you for that question, Rajnil. Let me just briefly explain why this word disruption is coming in. Why are we saying that there can be disruption with the generative AI? And then we'll talk about sectors that might be prone to disruption. So typically, traditional AI deals with existing data and analyzing and interpreting existing data. Generative AI is able to create new data. It can create text, it can create voice, it can create videos as well, and code, which all of you know. And it is now able to do it almost as if an expert human was doing it. And that's where people are saying, hey, this could be disruptive for most industries. It's not there yet. We are still a few years out to actual disruption happening. But you see shoots of this in some industries like customer support, which is a no-brainer to implement GenAI technologies in. I think all of us here in this panel are evaluating using GenAI for customer support in various stages of experimentation and productionizing. And what GenAI is especially good at is vernacular. You don't actually need to staff an army of customer support professionals. You can use GenAI to converse in multiple languages. So that's where I think it truly shines. But again, people are in various stages. Most of us are experimenting, productionizing this technology. Another area which is truly surprising is the creative industry, which most people felt could not be disrupted because code as such cannot be used for creative arts, creating images, creating videos. What the latest diffusion models have shown is that, and especially, for example, OpenAI's latest Sora model, it can truly create lifelike and realistic videos now. And that's where people feel that, hey, this could be disruptive. Again, we are a few years away from true disruption from happening. Slow to digitize industries like manufacturing, healthcare. You are seeing technologies like Google's Palm being adapted to answer medical questions as well. But what you'll hear a lot in this panel, in this discussion today is, again, generative AI cannot truly replace humans, at least not right now. There will always need to be a human in the loop, which is also the right, ethical, and sustainable practice of implementing AI. Gen AI can be used to create content, create data, but then you need a human in the loop to validate and actually take the decision on what AI is telling you, which I hope other panelists will also talk more about. Thanks.
So essentially you are saying it's getting there, not there yet, and it is applicable in a variety of different industries, some now, in the here and now, some maybe slightly later. But then with that comes a bigger downside as well. And maybe Gaurav, I'll go to you with this question around ethical AI, right? If you asked everybody, would you like your AI to be ethical? I'm hard pressed to find somebody who's going to say no. In fact, there is enough reports around ethical AI becoming a key consideration as this technology becomes more and more democratized. Your thoughts on the ethics bit of it, so both the plus side and the downside.
Thank you, Rajnil. So I am Gaurav Gupta, and I represent a company called DigiMoney Finance, which is a fintech and a NBFC combo. I'm sure all of us are using generative AI in one form or the other today. There will be hardly anyone who is not exposed to the generative AI. As a result, it also kind of imparts a lot of responsibility on part of, especially like people who are really developing the business models. I'm sure we have already discussed about a few business models which came in the opening remarks. And there are more business models which are on its way, whereby there's going to be a lot of dependency on the Gen AI as such. And certainly then there comes the need for being the ethical part of it, which is how you can be ethical. And now that I belong to a lending industry whereby we talk very high about when it comes to the trust factor and the ethics factor, it is inevitable from our perspective. So considering these factors, it is very, very important that whatever models are built using generative AI, it is not a black box. And these models should not have any kind of a bias or any kind of an inequality which is inbuilt into the model. So the idea should be that people who are building, or the companies which are building these AI models, these are taking care of some of these factors that the people should be able to really come out with what is the analysis which has gone through to come out with a solution. That means you should be able to explain the outcome of the AI in a manner so that which is a requirement from a regulatory perspective. So it is very, very important that trust and ethical factor plays a major role. Especially, let's not make it a black box. Let's try to make it as much explainable as possible and try to ensure that there is a point of inclusivity which is considered while doing this.
Maybe just a quick follow-up on that one. Given that you are in the lending space where this is of supreme importance, are you thinking of doing this in a systemic, algorithmic way, or are you, is this inbuilt into your process, or how do you handle it?
Certainly, I'll explain that by way of an example, Rajnil. Now, the credit decision making is primarily dependent on AI models. there are heaps of data. In fact, the previous discussion or the previous speaker very well spoke about from the aerospace company. They clearly mentioned that there is heaps of data available, right? So similarly, there are a lot of data points which are used for taking the credit decision. Now just think about a rejection. Now the expectation of a customer, from a customer perspective, is that is he or she communicated the reason for the rejection? If that is created, if that is built into your system, then it becomes very, very transparent and
In an explainable way, you mean?
explainable way. Exactly.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. And it's good to see that this is being built into your decisioning process itself. So it's not just a, when you're building out a financial application, it's not just the finance of it, but there are so many other aspects you have to keep in
And
mind.
these are auditable for sure,
Yeah.
because the way these models are built, you can always run tests and you can run samples,
Yeah.
and you can create simulations out of these.
So the other piece that people talk about, and maybe I'll bring Vaibhav and Mohan into the conversation, is the displacement in jobs. That's the fear that people have. In fact, I'm reading some reports which are talking about, the World Economic Forum has said that AI could displace 85 million jobs, but at the same time create 97 million more jobs. How do you, as an entrepreneur, prepare for this shifting workspace, this coexistence of AI and humans? How do you think about it?
Cool. So I want to. So I'm Vaibhav. I'm part of a company called Check. We are a credit management platform. We essentially help you settle your credit card bills in the most rewarding way. Now coming back to your question, I think I want to break it down into two parts. One is the job part of it, and then how entrepreneurs can sort of look at cues, right? If you look at the job market, it has always been changing. Whenever the new technology has come in, whenever the adoption happens, the job market restructures, reorganizes, and it has always been part of the market itself. But we have to go back to the lump of labor fallacy, right? We credit labor market much more than it has to, sort of. So it always reorients and comes back to the same pie, and the job allocation happens, right? So need not to really worry about it. There will be much more jobs and much more efficiency around it. How entrepreneurs can sort of become better at it is that there are two interesting trends with GenAI. One is, I think, GenAI for the first time is actually a technology which is not as steep in terms of learning. Technology itself is helping people become better, right? So the learning curve is not that steep. And that has happened for the first time. So entrepreneurs can sort of look at that cue whenever they are sort of taking actions. And the second part is that this is for the first time, I think, from blue collar to white collar, people have now democratized technology and they have access to this at their fingertips. So my assumption is that wages at the front line will go much higher than what they've been in the past. And those cues, entrepreneurs can sort of take and build around it. That'll be my take on it. Yeah.
Mohan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Vaibhav. So I'm Mohan Shushantam. I'm the Chief Data and Product Officer at Vivriti Capital. So we are an NBFC. And I agree. I mean, I would like to pick up from where Vaibhav left. So it has happened quite a few times in history wherein a new technology has come and there has been a great fear that it's going to take away a lot of jobs, but it has ended up creating more jobs. And that is how I see happening with GenAI as well. And I mean, in a value chain, in any organization, there are different types of jobs that are being done, right? What I see is the low value job, which is more mundane, robotic process automation or GenAI, these technologies will come in and they'll actually take away the low value jobs. And people will have to be reskilled to actually do things which are of a more higher value. And like Vaibhav mentioned, like the wage thing is actually going to go up because people are actually adding far more value in the value chain by moving up the job trainer, right? So I think that is something that is going to happen over a period of time. Beyond this, I just wanted to add one more thing on the ethical part because I think everyone is talking about it. So see, the point is, if you want to make an ethical model, your data using which you have trained the model has to be ethical, which means that in past you should have taken unbiased decisions. So let's say I'm evaluating, let's say there are credit associates sitting there or a system sitting there, which is taking unbiased decisions. only when the past data is unbiased, your AI actually ends up becoming unbiased. So if you are trying to do a lot of things in ethical way, you actually have to go back and fix all the data that you have already corrected, which may have some inherent biases baked in, right? And that is how the machine learns. So fixing the data, the past data, becomes a bigger challenge to solve for the ethical AI problem going forward.
Fantastic. Coming from the data organization, that perspective is really, really helpful, because people tend to think, well, data and human beings are kind of, they don't work well with each other. Maybe I'll bring Trivesh in for the next question. I think we are well established that companies have, large, small, across sectors, have implemented AI in some way, shape or form. How do you see startups gaining a competitive advantage? Because at times, I have run my own company a while back. Bootstrapping, getting funding, you don't have access to the right resources at the right time very often. How do you see that pan out in your world?
Thanks, Rajni. So to add, luckily TradeGenie is also a bootstrap company. Luckily profitable as well. So we know the hardships that it comes with, and sometimes I think we should take a step back, saying this entire conversation on generative AI, etc., is also because of how quickly India adopted to digitization. Because if not for digitization, everything else would take a step back. Digitization, Aadhaar based, then UPI, and then how quickly we could adapt to generative AI and generally AI, I think has been very, very quick. And for us as well, being into the broking space and wealth space, for us, it's become so much easier now to compete with the bigger boys across the globe, because now access to information, access to use cases is a lot quicker, is a lot faster. Second, for us, how startups and predominantly us, we are taking advantage of these things, are saying customer support, like everyone's been talking, saying how quickly now the customer support team can function remotely but cater to multiple cities, multiple states, multiple countries in their native language, that is basically vernacular, saying how do you work on that without actually having more and more number of people. And that's been one of the greatest use cases for us. And third, obviously, is cost reduction on an org level, saying your operation cost, the things which were mundane, which could have been otherwise needed 2-3 people, maybe even at a low level, but now they are all taken up with, I would say, a lot more accuracy. It could be disputed, but I believe that accuracy sometimes, when it is system, there is no emotion. So when there is no emotion, it is all factual. And when it is factual, the accuracy of what the output is much better. And I think for us, as a wealth platform, keeping emotions aside is, I think, one of the biggest things that we need to do. And when we are analyzing portfolios or looking at our own portfolios in an individual capacity, sometimes the emotion takes the better of decision making. So AI in that again helps us saying, okay, keep these things away, I will talk on facts and I will give you an output which is fact driven. And startups, I think, need to take advantage of this, saying that let us keep certain functions of the organization to AI. While there is human element always involved, but the AI will give you much better, concrete results than what otherwise humans could do. And the last thing I would like to say is that the AI concept itself is still very naive in the country, in the world. And building on use cases that you could think for the next 5 years, I think that's where startups today could build great businesses, and that's where they could thrive as well.
No, terrific point. I want to switch gears a little bit and maybe come to you, Rahul, because you work with the travel industry every day. Sustainability, right? That's another big term, not just in the travel industry, but also in the AI industry because of the, you know this better than I do. Now, in fact, PwC has done a study that says that AI could contribute like to $16 trillion to the global economy. Do you worry about, or I'm sure you do, but how do you handle tremendous growth in, well, AI, air travel, and how do you think about sustainability in that context?
Sure, Rajni, a very good question, right? See, if you really see, and there is a Gartner report that says, right, 2% of energy consumption in US is driven by only the data centers that is training the AI models, right? And I think there was a speaker in morning was saying, right? So for almost like 10 to 12 questions of that we are asking on OpenAI.com, right? That needs a 500 ml of water, right? So overall, as the economy will grow, right, the number of questions are increasing, the number of models are increasing, right? Overall, the energy consumption will be increasing, right? And now to make it sustainable, to make it more from environment friendly, right? There is a certain steps that everyone has to take care, right? See, from a business point of view, right? Sometimes we miss out on those points, right? But as we grow, right? These things will be keep coming back again and again. So the overall, the way I see it, right? We should definitely explore. So, for example, data centers service provider, they should explore. How can they get the clean, reusable energy sources, right? Okay, to using in the data centers. Similarly, nowadays the algorithms are getting optimized every day, right? And the kind of hardware, right? Okay, so can we use energy efficient hardware, right? So probably we will get the better results with the same set of hardware, and probably energy consumption will be low. Similar side from being an entrepreneur, being from the business, right? Okay, rather than building our own model, right, and training them from the scratch, can we reuse the same model? And probably that will be more beneficial, right? Because overall you would be using the already trained model, maybe you're customizing that, but at the same time the energy consumption that has to happen for the training from the scratch, right, that will go away. So these are the few things that I can see. Naturally there is a more step has to be taken more from the sustainable point of view, but overall from the way I look at it, right, in next 3 to 5 years, right, anyway all the businesses will be spending minimum 20% of their IT budget on this, right? And at that time this will be becoming more problem. So naturally for any engineering leader, right, who's deciding, they have to identify, can we use the same models, right, rather than building their own and from the scratch.
And you've seen this change in the last few years, yes?
I see that as use cases are emerging, right, this problem is getting increased. And since the cost that is you are paying, right, that is also increasing because now number of more use cases are coming, right? So this sort of thought is coming back in the questions, right? Should we build a model in-house or should we use the same, right, that is already built?
Well, thank you for that. Very thoughtful response. The other flip side of the coin now, maybe I'll go to Vaibhav yourself and to Mayank yourself. Biggest challenges / opportunities for entrepreneurs with AI integration, because this is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof. And while something might work in a POC, in a lab format, unless you are able to scale it with existing systems, which are, by the way, in many cases legacy, how do you see that evolve for the next few years?
Cool. Thank you for the question. So I think it is at two levels. One, I think the productionizing of LLMs in general, I think, is not standardized right now. That's where most of the companies are not having high confidence to sort of take their product out in the market to their consumers. Standardization happens when a technology has been in the market, and specifically, I think LLM AI has just sort of grown very, very fast. We were just talking about it. Telephone took about 10 years to become mainstream. Internet took about 10, 12 years to become mainstream. I think AI will become mainstream in about 3 years, right? So it has not gotten enough sort of time to stabilize. Every day things are changing. Sometimes there's fine tuning, then there's RAG, and then there's something else. So obviously it'll go through its own cycle, so it's not standardized right now. The second, I think there are not many vertical foundational models that are there. Just adding to Rahul's point, I think there in fintech there are a couple of companies that are doing work like FinGPT, Bloomberg GPT, but they have not been out there in the market, and say companies like us, we've been there for just about a year. We cannot adopt them and start building products. Also in health tech and ed tech, right? The aim is to build something which is hyper personalized, so that in the outskirts of the earth you are able to sort of reach with technology, right? That's what we're trying to build. But I think with these two things coming into picture, these are the major challenges, adding on to ethical, regulation, talent, and all those sort of pool of problems that are already in the market. Yeah, just...
Let me also chime in there. So obviously, I echo what Vaibhav just said. GenAI APIs are not, you could say, production ready, and I speak from experience. The latencies that we see using GenAI APIs from OpenAI, other platforms, in the range of 5 to 7 seconds, even to answer a single question. That is not really consumer grade or production ready. So it will take time to productionize. And of course, training vertical models, training your own LLMs is cost prohibitive for many startups. But there are also opportunities. And the area of opportunities I see is first, cost is reducing. The good thing is there are so much competition in the LLM space with the large companies. The cost of using these APIs is radically decreasing. And over time, I believe cost of LLMs, the tokens per second price you pay, will be brought down to almost cost of a GPU. And I think it will be quite useful for startups as well. So it won't be cost prohibitive. The other area I've noticed, which is an area of opportunity for startups in general, is with this co-pilot model, you'll be able to build large applications, large products with smaller teams now, much smaller than what you would have needed before. And this is where I think innovation comes in. The larger companies are slow to innovate. They're used to their own ways of working, their own business models. And this is where startups can come in, radically innovate, radically solve the customer pain point with much smaller teams. And this is where I think are real areas of opportunity in this space.
Just adding one trivia here, it took about $100 million as per Sam Altman to train one of those ChatGPT models. So with cost, I think it will become much more effective going forward. Yeah.
Just one related question to that. Do you see code conversion as being benefited by generative AI? So let's say if you're a large bank with legacy systems running, I don't know, SaaS maybe or something else, and you want to go from there to, let's say, a PySpark. Traditionally, that would take probably a year. Do you see any benefit of using generative AI to accelerate that process?
So just to add on top of it, I think we've seen about 40-45% developer productivity go up. We've not really solved for that use case, but developer productivity will be around writing the code, merging pull requests, and then also writing unit test cases. Those are the three major areas which you have to do as a developer, and that has gone up at least about 40-45%.
So essentially, when the time for integration comes, you're saying it's going to be faster for a variety of reasons, but also because of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I concur. We are leveraging Copilot to write our own unit test cases, and also for documentation that is very easy to do with Copilot. And that's where you'll see much more productivity gains, and that's where you see faster application development in general with smaller teams. So that will definitely help.
Fair enough. We have 2 minutes left. Last couple of questions. Maybe I'll bring Gaurav and maybe Rahul in. How do you see AI, GenAI provide like a competitive advantage for startups compared to more established corporations?
So I'll take this first, and just adding from what Vaibhav and Mayank mentioned, that see, as far as the startups are concerned, the best part is that they are agile. Okay, they can take decision much faster. They can decide on what kind of technology to go on, how much to go on, how much to leverage. But whereas this is not possible with large corporations, as a result, it becomes easy for them to adopt to these kind of, the possibilities which are being offered by generative AI. Especially now we see in some of the, especially for our business, there are two segments whereby we are highly leveraging the generative AI, which is one is on the customer support side, which almost all of us are using. And there is one more use case whereby it is about collection process itself, whereby we are able to use voice generative AI to approach to the customer, whereby the customer is, the technology is able to understand the kind of mood of the customer, what kind of dialect is required, what kind of emotions that the customer is going through, and that helps to convey the message.
In vernacular, right?
In vernacular, absolutely. Very well, because these systems which are generated, whether it is generative voice or whether it is generative text, these are very much replicable in the respective vernacular languages.
Rahul, any comments?
Just to add what Gaurav mentioned, right? See, if you look at these startups, right, they always have a less bureaucracy, so they can always go more faster. At the same time, they can always ideate, adapt, iterate, right, much faster than typically a bigger organization. At the same time, nowadays, right, these all big the AI models, right? Previously, they was part of the big organizations, right? And due to the cost being so high, any startup cannot afford them. Now, because they are very low price or either almost free, right? Any startup can build up on top of it. And I think we started seeing it. A lot of startups are getting evolved around it. The last point that I want to touch upon, right? Startups can always customize these AI algorithms, right? And can build up a differentiation, and that will be their competitive edge.
Fantastic. One last passing thought, and anyone, you can take it. If you were to ask this audience to upskill or reskill or think about it differently, what is one thing that you would ask them to start doing and stop doing?
The first thing is going to be don't shy away from technology, because the history has always proved that you need to adapt to the changing scenarios sooner than later. If you miss the bus right now, it's going to be late because then it becomes very expensive also. But whatever models are available, at least from a co-piloting perspective, start using them. And one recommendation is, please do go through the IBM's Adaptability Index, which is released very recently. It is the 2023 index, which was, the research was done in November 23, and the results have been released early this year. It has got so much of information about how people are, or especially India, is really doing a great job by adapting to the generative AI.
Just want to add one more thought, right? What Gaurav mentioned. This is the best time because the way technology is evolving, right? In next 2 to 3 years, right? Many jobs, right? Especially, that will be taken by the AI. What I'm not saying, people will be letting go, but at the same time, right? From the content creation or the basic automation job, right? That will be definitely taken by AI. So at the same time, you can, if you are a business owners or entrepreneurs, right? You can always augment your workforce, right? Giving them the respective education, giving them the respective training or coaching that they need, right? So that way, they can start learning it, right? And at the same time, the new paradigm that is evolving, right? That can increase their efficiency. For example, GitHub Copilot, right? That is the best example, right? So that is going to naturally help your business, right? So it's better to augment these workforce, right? Rather than doing the automation and replacing them.
Terrific. We are out of time. I'll end with a piece of trivia. Till 2014, most machine learning models used to come out of academia and academic institutions. Between 2014 and now, most machine learning papers, AI papers, came out of large corporations. I feel the next decade is in startups, and I'm very, very encouraged and enthused at the amount of amazing work that you guys are doing, and you've been a fantastic panel. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. Thank you.